Okay, hello everybody and welcome to this video. Today we're going to go through a problem I had last weekend. Today it's Sunday the 18th of September 2022. I am in Cyprus. Even though it's September, the weather is very hot here. Now last Sunday I went to the grocery store, and when I came out I went to the grocery store with my van. And what I did, I came back to the van, I put the key in the ignition, I turned it on, all the lights on my dashboard comes on, I wait for the lights to go out because this is a diesel van, and then when I tried to start the car, it wouldn't crank, it wouldn't start. Okay, now, the first thing I noticed is that when I put the key in the ignition, I can hear the steering lock unlock. Can you hear it? Let me try again. Locked. Unlocked. Now that tells me that the key is okay, it's good. The ignition switch recognizes the key, and then the ignition switch sends a signal to the steering lock to unlock the steering. Now, when you turn the key on and all the lights come on, that's very good. Now, if you turn the key to the on position and there is no lights on the dashboard, that means the problem is your steering lock. You shouldn't be able to hear the steering lock unlock when you put the key in the ignition, when the lights on the dashboard don't come on when you turn the key to the on position. Now you might say, why would the key turn if the steering lock is faulty? Well, the reason is because when the steering lock mechanism broke down, it got stuck into the open position. So the key, the ignition switch, believes that it gets a signal from the steering lock that the steering lock is open, and it allows the key to turn to the on position. Now, bear in mind, I am not an electrician, I'm not a mechanic, I'm not a diagnostic guy. I'm an automotive locksmith. That's all I do. I do keys, remotes, anything to do with the locks on the car. Now, when I tried this so many times and I couldn't get it to start, so I had to call a recovery to bring the car to my house. So the recovery guy dropped the car outside my house because he couldn't drop it into the drive because of the gates being too narrow. So the car arrived at my house at 11 o'clock at night. I left it there, I locked it, left it there, went to bed thinking about the problem. Now in the morning, about 8 o'clock in the morning, I got up, I came to the van, I put the key into the ignition, turned it on, and the car started. I reversed the car into my drive, turned it off, turned it on, turned it off, turned it on. Every time it started. So I thought, okay, the problem has gone away. Thank God for that. But I hurried to come to a conclusion. Now I left the van, I went back home, I had a coffee, whatever. And about 11 o'clock midday, I came back to the car so I can go out and do my business. Again, put the key in the ignition and the car wouldn't crank, wouldn't start. Now bear in mind, the weather here in Cyprus, it's very hot. Even though it's the 18th of September now, people still go to the beach for swimming. We still have tourists coming into the country. So bear that in mind that in the morning when the weather was cool or when the car was cool, the car started. And by lunchtime, 11:30 lunchtime, the car wouldn't start. So that tells me that when the car is cold, it's okay, and when it's hot, it's not. Now, bear in mind, heat makes certain things when they're hot, they expand, and when it's cold, they contract. So the other thing I thought about, it's maybe the ignition switch, when I turn it to crank the car or start the car, it doesn't send the voltage to the starter module. So there are two possibilities here. Is either the ignition switch is faulty and it doesn't send the voltage to the starter motor, or the starter motor itself, it's faulty. So what I did next, I went under the van. Okay, I'm under the van. That is my starter motor there. Now I left the ignition switch to the on position. Now I need to attach those two bolts together. I don't know if I'll be able to do it here holding the camera and the tightness of the space here. Now if I touch those two bolts together with the ignition being on, the car should start. Now if the car cranks and it doesn't start, that means the problem is not from the switch to the starter, it's somewhere else. So let me try and touch this together if I can. It's difficult, guys. Anyway, let me see again. I'm looking for an entrance from the side. No, I cannot do it from this position. I don't know if I can do it from the other side, but anyway, trust me, when you touch those two bolts, the car cranks, but it doesn't start. So that eliminates the starter is good, and also the signal from the ignition switch to the starter should be good as well, because if that wasn't good and that was the problem, then the car would have started while I am touching those two bolts together. So I move to the next inspection. Okay, we have eliminated the problem being the starter motor or the ignition switch. Now my next move was to check the fuses. The fuses are under there. I used my test light to check them all. And while I was there, I also tried and moved around or tapped on the relays. The relays are there as well. So that's what I did next. Right, here are the fuses. They are under the glove compartment. I used my test light to check them all, and they were all good. After that, I removed this panel here to get to the relays. Now if you look in there, that yellow one is the starter relay. I moved them around, I tap on them, I actually moved the wiring as well, just in case there was some miscontact or something with the wiring there. I moved everything around. I went back to the ignition switch. I tried to start the van, but it wouldn't start. So the next thing I did is try all the grounds on the vehicle. Right, we're under the hood. Now there are some ground points here. I touched on them, they were tight, they look good, clean. Even though they do look good, I removed them, double check them, put them back together. But I had to check the main grounds, which is the chassis to the engine. And if you look down here, this cable here is the most important one. Now that part there, it looked a little bit rusty. So what I did, I removed it. I got a wire brush, I brushed them all down, tied the bang all together, I tested them. The ground here is good. So after I did all this, I went back to the ignition switch, tried to start the van up, and the van wouldn't start. Same problem. So I had to move to the next stage. Right, so what did I do next? Well, I thought to call a friend. Now I actually called two friends of mine. They are mechanics, and they are very good mechanics. So I told them my issue, and what they told me to do is exactly what I did so far, which it wasn't very helpful. So I thought the next thing I'll do is to diagnose the van. Okay, so I use my Think diagnostic tool. This is a very good little tool. It's not very expensive. This was introduced to me by Eric from Advanced Level Diagnostics. And I have to tell you that I do follow a few YouTube channels, and that's how I learn what I learn. I mean, I'm not a mechanic, as I said. I'm not a diagnostic guy, but I have learned a lot from Ivan from the Pine Hollow Auto Diagnostics, Eric from the Advanced Level Diagnostics. I follow Scanner Danner on YouTube, and also the Mechanic Mindset and some other channels. So I do watch a lot of videos and learn from them, and I advise you guys to subscribe to their channel because you will learn a lot from them. So I did put the diagnostic tool onto my OBD, and I created a report, and this is what I got. Okay, here is the report I got. As you can see, from here onwards, we have everything is green, which means all these modules are okay. But we have all this here, 11, 13 problems here. Now, if you look at the ESP control unit, the coding is invalid. We have a CAN signal on the actuator, on the gears. Okay, that's invalid. But if you look in general, we have CAN bus communication or message problems with the engine control module. Engine control module there, engine control module there, engine control module there, and so forth. So I believe all these CAN bus communications are, they have to do with one another. They're all relevant. One unit is not talking, and then the rest cannot talk to it. And the way I look at it now is the engine control unit is not talking to the rest of the units on the car, because we can see here engine control module, engine control module. So it's basically like three guys are shouting at one guy, and that guy is not responding. That guy who is not responding, surely is something wrong with him. Okay, it's not the three guys trying to talk to him, it's the guy who is not responding back, and I believe the engine control module or the engine computer is not responding. So looking at this report from my Thing Diag scanner, I decided to check the CAN bus communication on the van. Okay, so I have plugged my breakout box to the DLC connections. I'm outside the van. I close all the doors. The car is sleeping at the moment, so I am going to try and check my CAN bus here. I'm going to use my multimeter to read the resistance on it. It should be a 60 ohms. So I put my meter onto 200 ohms. Now we have the pin number 14 is CAN low, and pin number 6 is CAN high. So I'm going to put my leads onto CAN low and CAN high, and I should be getting 60 ohms. Now I am getting 66, 67. It's jumping up and down a little bit, but that should be fine. It was stable. Now I want to check the voltage on the CAN bus. I'm going to put my multimeter onto 20 volts, and using my breakout box, I am going to put my negative lead onto a ground. Now this is chassis ground, and this is signal ground. I'm going to put it on the chassis ground, and I know from the guys who I follow that CAN high and CAN low, the voltage together should be added to 5 volts. So CAN high should be higher than CAN low. So I'm going to try and see what CAN low voltage do I get. And once I put the thing in there, oh, that's a 2.57 volts, which is good. So let's see what the CAN high gives me. Okay, that's 2.57. which it looks the voltage is good. So 2.5 and 2.5 makes a 5 volt. Now the CAN bus here at the DLC, it looks to be good. Now I'm going to move on to the engine computer, and I'm going to try and see my CAN bus measurements there to see if the CAN bus reaches the computer in good order. Now, unfortunately, I don't have an oscilloscope to check the waveforms. It's something that I had in mind to buy, but I will try and do that with my multimeter. Okay, we're under the hood, and the first thing I did, I checked the powers and grounds onto the ECU, which everything is fine. I have ground, I have voltage here. Now you might say to yourselves, how did you find out which is which? If you Google search for the ECU you will find a lot of diagrams that tells you which is the ground, which is the power, and which are the CAN lines. I found that the CAN lines are the two probed wires, CAN high and CAN low. And what I am going to do now, I am going to set my multimeter, and I am going to try and see what the resistance here is on this CAN. And here we are, 63.3. So my CAN line up to here, it's clear, it's good. I'm not sure if it's got any interference in it, because I don't have an oscilloscope to check it out, but I assume it's good. So now my theory, the problem, it's my ECU, which I am going to remove it. ECU removed. ECU open up. ECU dismantled. There is the inside and there is the back side. So what I am going to do, or what I did, this is not the ECU that I have fixed. So what I did after I removed it, I resolder all these front pins and these 6 pins here. Okay, now all the front ones I did. When I say resolder, I didn't just hit the solder up, I just apply solder to it as well, extra solder. So I did all these pins, I touched them up, put the ECU back in the car, and the car started. Right, problem solved. Now, not completely though, because when I went out to do a job, the car stopped, the engine stopped running as I was driving. It happened twice. So when I came back home, I thought, okay, now I have to remove the ECU again and touch the other line of connections, the pins. These are the pins that go to the front. Yep, this is what it is. So these are the pins that go to the front of the ECU. Okay, so basically what I did, I resoldered all of them, and ever since then the van is running great. Okay, now I am not going to put the good ECU, the one that I fixed, back in the car and start it up, because you have to trust me that the car runs perfectly. Alright guys, I hope this helped in some way. This is the steps I took to solve the problem, and I hope this can help someone else. Until the next one, have a good one. Bye for now.